All right, guys. Hey, Paul McLean here, and thank you so much for allowing us to be on the next level live. I know for myself, every single week, I hop on and I'm excited to lean in, listen, and really hear from the best in the insurance industry. I mean, you guys, you're a part of the biggest and best company, and it's the biggest and best company because you're a part of it. And so I'm excited to be able to bring the message to you today about going the extra mile and some things that some of the people did. Like we've got Yoori on, as you can see, and there we go. Hey, that just makes everybody, it makes me feel good hearing the applause. So in fact, I might put that as my ringtone, Yoori, and just for self-image boost. But every single week, the goal is to be able to best provide value to the organization, to the Family First Life company. And this being a national call, I sat back and thought, like, how can I best bring value to everybody plugging in this morning at 8 a.m., Pacific Standard Time. And you've gone from just getting started with Family First Life, coming from a prior company to, first, month or two, you ended up getting right close to 20K a month. And then all of a sudden I looked at the leaderboard and I was like, what in the heck just took place? Like you went to 100,000 a month in issue paid business. And then you followed it up with another massive month, not too far away from 100,000 in issue paid business. And so I really want to get into that because you've done specific things that everybody watching today, if they do those specific things, they can have that kind of result. This thing is not that deep. Anybody can do it. It doesn't have any prerequisites. You don't have to have any skill sets that are, it's just if you go to work and you do these things, you can see success. And so I just want to say thank you to Sean Mike and Mike Sizer for putting this on. It just seems like it's true leadership where you see kind of around the bend where we can see only so far, and they see the next phase, the next step. And from leads to compensation to training to support to these offices across the country to work spots. I mean, it's just been something where I know that it's on the forefront of FFL, Sean Mike's, the corporate office's mind every day. They eat, drink, and sleep this company, this business, and it's for everybody, myself and you and everybody watching this included, to go out there and really have the best shot at success. So thank you guys. So that being said, Yoori, I'm excited to have you on. If we can kind of start maybe with prior to FFL, I know you started with a practice company and some of those things that if you want to, I don't know what led you to the insurance industry and then kind of, what caught your eye with Family First Life where it didn't work before and you thought maybe this would make a difference and give you a new shot. But if you can kind of start there, and then I got a lot of questions to kind of go through and get as much as we can get today from you.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you for having me on. It's truly an honor. And I honestly don't know what I can offer to anybody else because I'm not doing anything different. Like I'm just doing what the boot camp told me to do, like what the system is, and that's about it. But if there's anything that I can share, it just motivates me more to do more. So just to backtrack a little bit, like I only got licensed maybe middle of 2019. So I've maybe been, no, actually not even, because I haven't even renewed my license yet. So I haven't even been licensed 2 years. Before I was in the fashion industry, I was in design and production and sales. So I oversaw an entire company. But aside from that, like my husband is from the industry and he's been in the industry 10 years. And I just saw the flexibility. Like I would be a W2 employee going to work, like, 8 to 10, like I was at work all the time. And then he had so much freedom and he was making a lot more money than me. So that kind of opened my eyes. Okay, if I'm not going to retire in the fashion industry, I need to get out as soon as possible. And then I went to my practice company. I was there for a little less than a year. Um, they say you're not captive, but actually you're captive. Um, all the points that I put in there my first year, it's still there with that other company, and my upline is still getting the renewals. And I just didn't agree with a lot of the things that they were doing. And when I came across this opportunity with Family First Life, at first I thought it was too good to be true. Like I was getting 50% comp. Like how can you get double that for doing the same amount of work? And I thought, and that company didn't do leads. Obviously, I mean, I think that's why a lot of people in this first starting out in the industry, they're going broke. They're not making money. And, because, working off of your warm market and whatnot, it's not sustainable. So when I heard that, we can do leads here and much higher comp, and just total freedom, I just jumped on board. And yeah, that's how I got started. So I came on board maybe like September of last year. So it's been about approaching 9 months now.
Okay.
To the
And
day. Yeah.
for your first couple months with Family First Life, what did that look like? Did you write 20,000 your first month, or did it take you a little while to kind of get things in motion? What did your first couple months look like?
I think the first couple months I didn't write 20, but I was close. But it was really hard for me personally on a kind of mental level, because I do agree with everybody when they say, newly licensed person it's so much easier for them to succeed here because you're stuck in your old mentality and you have your old habits. So it was hard for me to break out of that, and like nobody can do it except yourself. So I think I don't remember the first total month, but I remember my first appointment, I wrote up 6,000 points, and I was like, wow, that's pretty cool.
And so 6,000 points, that's like
That
annual
first appointment.
like 500
Yeah.
a month. Yeah. And so I love what you just said. Like when you're getting started and you're newly licensed and you've not had any prior experience, you don't pick up bad habits or different beliefs that kind of lead you from, into struggles or just, really failure. You kind of pick up what works, right? So if you're brand new and you join Family First Life, the system obviously works. We've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people every month that issue pay over 20,000 that really kind of show proof of concept that, the training, the leads, the schedule, Monday, Thursday dials, the work spots, like this stuff works. There's no way to deny it. There's just too many people that validate it. But when you came on board from a prior company, you had these different precepts, so to speak, that you had kind of put in place that this is how I see this business. How did you like let go of that thought process that was derived from the prior company and really set that aside and pick up the thought process of how you do things with Family First Life? How did you do that? What do you think helped you do that?
I think just messing up a lot did that. Messing up on the phone, messing up on the field. Here it's so simple. Like, the leads, the clients requested that information. So like when you make a dial, you're not asking them to meet with you. Like they already did that when they sent in the form and gave you all of their personal information. And when you sit in a home, you're not asking them if they want a policy. They already did that when they invited you over to their house. But coming from a prior practice company, because it's all over there, it's about like like educating and sitting down and following up and stuff like that. Honestly, it just took a lot of messing up, like a lot of times where I went on a lead appointment and treated it like a referral appointment or whatnot, and then it didn't work out. And then after so many countless meetings of not working, even here, even while I was making money and making my money back, and I was like, okay, I need to let go of whatever is holding me back and just stop trying to outsmart the system, because I thought that I knew better, coming with like the 1 year industry experience that I had, which is laughable. So it like kind of like brought me to my knees. Okay, if I'm going to make it here, I need to let go of anything that's in my head and just start fresh and just like soak everything up. And I started plugging into the system. I started connecting with Marissa, my upline, and I just like let her take over and like tell me what to do. And that's when my business really became consistent, because I would say starting from my first month, I always made money here, but I didn't make consistently like 20, 30, 50, whatever, until I started plugging into the leadership.
I love that. I mean, that's such a great tip, because I just think the best producers are the most coachable producers. And it's the same thing with building a business. Like my business exploded when I was truly just open-minded, when I was vulnerable, when I wanted to interrogate my reality, and I wanted to get something different and do something different. I was willing to change. And when that took place with Sean, and Sean was able to speak to me when I was in that, fertile ground, so to speak, the seeds he dropped, they were able to plant and grow into something where my choices were different. And then all of a sudden the business started to grow. And it's the same thing, selling and building. The best producers, the biggest businesses are the most coachable by far. They're humble and they've got this confidence that I can be successful. See, the thing is this, like for you, you're the confidence of like, I've been doing this for a year. I kind of, have these different thought processes of how to do it. It wasn't necessarily a bad thing. Like you're just confident. You're like, I can do this thing.
Yeah.
Like, heck, I got it. I'm confident in myself. But sometimes, that confidence misplaced when it's borrowed from the wrong source where it wasn't necessarily working, but you had heard that message repeated over and over and over and over again. Well, that repetition of message gave you this thought process, like, this is what I believe is true. But once you got to a place where you're like, man, I'm sick and tired of this, man. Like, this thing's got to work. How is this person running 40, 50? And you're so competitive and you can do this,
Yeah.
that you become open and say, all right, just tell me. And see, that had to happen though. That's the thing. Most people give up when they're going through a process that's painful, but has to take place in order for them to get to a position where they're willing to just let go, look up and say, give me some feedback, some course correction, some direction, so I can put some things in place. And that shows its face at many different facets in this business. It could be my thought process on hiring staff is simply this. And you keep hearing other thought processes on how to hire staff, why to hire staff, but you see it a certain way. Maybe that's from what you heard before. Maybe that's from a prior job, occupation, prior experience, whatever it may be. And only until you say, okay, this isn't working. My business is not growing the way it should be. This person's business is growing. Can you give me feedback and tell me exactly what to do and how to do it? And then boom, all of a sudden that changes. It could be work spots. I was talking to this agent, Yoori, about, plugging into offices, and they're like, man, it's like a 3-hour drive. And I said, I understand that, but it's Mondays and Thursdays. It's 2 days a week. And if you can come and plug in and get around people that are going to show you the right behavior, the right thought process, you get to see how they behave when they get hung up 9 times. You get to see what the response is when they get 4 different objections and how they overcome those objections. You get to see the intensity to which they dial. You get to see how focused they are and how they minimize distractions and how they engage, all those different things. You get to ask them some questions when you do the meeting for that hour and get their feedback and ask them, well, I had this situation. How do you handle this situation? All that stuff is priceless. That's how you get better. Everybody that kills it here is they're not killing it on their own accord or because they came with a different experience and they're just going to, live from that. It's because they become open. They become just an open, clean, clear canvas, and they allow to grow and build from there because the system works. And so I love that. And I love the awareness of that. And I just wonder if there's somebody right now that's kind of going through that process. And if they were just aware that, hey, I just got to let go of this thought process. If I simply let go of this thought process on leads or whatever and pick up what I keep hearing, it'll make all the difference in the world. And it has for you. So let's talk about that. What is leads? At first, you'd never bought leads before, a prior company. So was that did you step into it and just kind of get a couple $100 a week, or did you go in and buy $2,000 right away? Did you start what did it look like as you kind of stepped in and developed that lead strategy that you have?
So before I actually got started, but when I decided to join, I had no budget, because I'm very, very competitive. So I wanted to win. And I was like, okay, if all of these people are winning and all of these people are writing, $500,000 on their own pen, and as if that's nothing, then what's to say that I can't do it? So I was like, I'm going to give myself unlimited budget. And then I'm going to make, however much at 50,000 first year. But the reality was, I didn't know what I was doing. And, I'm in Southern California. As you can see, it says LA, so I'm in LA. And, CRM, there aren't that many leads and whatever. So I remember my first lead purchase was 400. Now that I look back on it, it's really not that much. But as a new person who's never bought in leads before, and actually, coming from the industry, some people frown upon that. But so having all of that prior kind of mindset, I bought it. That's the only lead batch that I didn't make a single dollar. So after that, I've made money, profited every single batch. But that one, I didn't make any money. And I was like, okay, I kind of tried to milk it, and I think that's kind of human nature. Okay, I have to make my money back before I buy my next batch. So it was
when you did that and you bought that first batch of $400, did you think, did you ever have this thought that leads don't work, leads suck, and maybe that I shouldn't be doing that? Maybe everybody's just kind of saying that. Did you start perceiving the leads based off that first batch,
No,
you didn't?
no, I just thought that I sucked. I mean, which is true. So,
That's a big deal though. Like that's the ticket right there. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I think too often somebody has one experience and they take that short-term experience, that short-term outcome, and they go ahead and change the narrative of all the future leads that they pick up or future clients that they sit with or future staff that they have, and they now perceive like that's just the way it is. Or no, how about you just suck? Which
Yeah,
which just means you can get better. Because if it's the
yeah.
leads, you can't get better. But if I just suck, it ain't the leads. Well, you can grow, get better, and now the next time you get leads, you're going to be a lot more successful because you're not calling leads in such a way that's validating the verdict you come to, which is this is going to work, just to not get any profit. But you're saying, how can I get better? So you're searching for ways to tweak, adjust, and modify how you do it with the same expectation that no, these leads are great because they're people that need life insurance. They've asked for life insurance. They've enrolled in the fact they need life insurance. So you're going to get the most from it. That's a big deal. That's a big deal. So I love that. So anyways, keep going. So talk about how that lead strategy is developed, because you were going from like almost 20 and then you hit 20 and then now you're doing about 100,000 a month in personal production. Talk about like what's changed with your strategy and what are you doing now that you weren't doing before to get to that level?
I mean, honestly, I can go into a lot of things, but the bottom line is I'm just spending more. Like I'm just buying more leads and that's it. And I think that's the beauty of FFL. Like you can control the income that you make. It's not up to anybody else, it's you. So I think, you know, in any other company you first join, you set an income, like, I mean, even with leads too, like people are like, how much, I have this much budget in terms of buying leads. But I kind of challenge them to think the opposite. It's not about how much you can afford to buy every month. Actually, it's how much do you want to make every month? And then you just work the numbers backwards. And then you just spend like a tenth of that amount in leads and you're gonna get to your goal. And you know, like you said, I think a while, like a few minutes ago, you said, you know, top leaders are humble and all that. Actually, what it is we get humbled. Like we get brought down to our knees, and then we're like, oh my God, I'm not really as good as I thought I was, so I better listen. And that's when you start getting better. And like I did like 20, I did 30,000, and I was able to repeat that. But I just didn't know how these people were doing 50, 70, $100,000 months, because I felt like I was putting in like all hours of the day. Like I was just all in, but it wasn't, you know, I felt like it wasn't working. And it's funny to say it's not working and you suck when you're still making 30,000. But I think at this company, like the standard is so high because everybody makes 20,000, like 30,000, you know, there's still so much room. And that's when I actually started plugging into you, Paul. And then, you know, like I would call you and then ask questions and stuff like that. And then I just picked up more leads. I remember telling you like Southern California, I can't get consistent amount of leads every week. But actually, I mean, I was just looking at one source. And after I spoke to you, and then I just picked up as many leads as I can and just put it into like I forget the word, like I just systemized it where they just come in. Like I just automated it. Like when I started automating my leads, that's literally when my business took off. Because before I would be on the CRM, like every 15 minutes, like I would buy leads at 2 a.m. I would buy leads at 5 a.m. And, you know, like I wouldn't sleep, like I would just buy leads. And that's how I think I was running my numbers. And in the last 3 months of 2020, I still made 120,000 or something like that, like over 100,000 just from instant internet leads, actually.
That's great.
But my business I felt like it wasn't sustainable because like if there are no leads to buy, then I can't buy, then I can't work. And I just kind of put myself in that bad situation where CRM dictated how much I should make, you know? So then I like automated my leads like through like other vendors as well. And now I kind of do every single lead. And it's just bottom line is when I spent, so in May, when I wrote almost 100,000, in April, I had spent 8,500 on leads. And then in May, I did about like 60,000 and I spent 6,400 on leads. Like I was running my number yesterday. So it's just very simple. Like if you want to make 60,000, you just spend 6,000. Like if you want to make 100,000, you just spend 10,000. Like to me, I've dumbed it down so that it works for me. And I love that you can do that. I love that you can decide how much you deserve to make here, and then you just put in the work and do it.
Well, see, everybody can do that. Everybody can dumb it down. Everybody has a ratio, and not everybody's ratio is the same. And see, your ratio, Yoori, it will change. So like next year, when you're looking at your numbers, you might be able to get $6,000 in leads and write 100,000 just because you're much better, which is great. But the problem is when people try to act like they're better than they are and they don't have the right amount of resources and they try to squeeze and like call the same leads over and over again.
I've done that.
Yeah, stack your deck, stack the deck in your favor. And I love how you know your numbers. So it's almost like that's how I felt good when somebody's like commission based. I'm like, this is the upside of commission based is that you can make as much as you want to make. The downside is somebody says like, well, what if you don't get paid? Well, if you don't get paid, it's just because you don't know you don't know your numbers. And you're not working. Because here I know, like, if I get, like you said, $6,000 in leads, I'm going to write 60,000. So you write, I think that month you wrote 90 something thousand, right?
Yeah, 98 or something.
98,000, and you spent like almost $9,000 in leads, and so you're gonna net like a crazy amount, 70,000, 80,000. But the person that's spending $2,000 in leads, they write 20,000, and then they end up only netting like 15,000 or 12,000 after chargebacks falls. So the net's so much different. And if they were just to triple up, all of a sudden, boom, everything changes. Where are you going to get, when you said like you automated it, what do you mean by that? And are you running all local, or did you kind of have to go outside the box and travel and sacrifice a little bit more with locations to get to that place of 100,000 a month?
Yeah, so I'm definitely traveling, and I did my first travel trip actually beginning of December, because when we had the Black Friday sale, instead of buying anything else, I bought 400 leads like that Black Friday, like that weekend. And then that was my first trip. I kind of went overzealous with everything. But now I travel. So I like to be in a system, because I believe a business has to be predictable. Otherwise, it's a hobby. It's not a system, and it doesn't really suit your life. So I travel every other week up to the Bay Area. And every Monday through Wednesday, every other week, I'm just up there, no matter what. Like, no matter how many appointments I book, no matter how many leads I have for the area, I'm just up there. And if I don't have enough appointments, then I door knock, so I just, like, I'm up there no matter what. And then the other times I'm in, like, locally here in Southern California. But now it's like, whatever it takes, like, I'll go to the leads. You can never blame the area that you're in, because you can drive, like, take your car and drive a couple hours. And, we're driving anyway all the time for appointments. So just put on, like, every Monday when I go up, I listen to your training, and I swear, like, 5 hours goes by like it's nothing. So
I love it. How do you, how far is the Bay Area from where you're at, Yoori?
It's about like a little under 400 miles. It takes me 5 hours. I'm fast. I don't know if that's fast. I'm a fast driver, but like 5 hours. So I leave every Monday at like 4 or 5 a.m. Then I go up there and it's 10. And then I start doing appointments usually around 11, all the way until 8 or 9 p.m. And then the next day, and then the next day, and then I come down.
So you have 3 full days of appointments out there. Then you come back. And see, the one thing I want to point out, a couple of things before we wrap up that I want everybody to kind of grab, because I'm thinking, this is so good. One of them being that you go up no matter what. It's like in your mind, you've already said, like, this is a non-negotiable. I have to. What that does is it allows you to keep all your energy, emotion, and focus tied to going out there and performing and getting the most when you're out there, because you're not saying like, well, if I don't have enough leads, or if I try to book appointments and I don't hit X amount, then I'm not going to, like, like, I'm going to, so I better stack the decks. When I get up there, I see success, opposed to I want to kind of tiptoe on it, because I don't know if I really want to go. And so if I don't hit this, maybe I can have some conditions that'll make me compromise and not have to go. That's the big difference. Like, in your mind, it's a non-negotiable. And so if more agents could do that, I know when I started doing it, it made all the difference in the world. Before, it was kind of like, I don't know if I really want to. So I would act and behave in such a way that even if I did go, it was well below that what it should have been because I wasn't fully committed when I was focused and putting the time in. And a lot of times I would kind of, sell myself on not going, and I should have gone, and then my week was kind of thrown away. But just
Yeah.
having that non-negotiable is crucial. And then the last thing is, I mean, guys, like I'm convinced when I used to drive 5 hours and I used to go to the same area that you went to, Yoori, that's what helped me get so much better because I was going up there and my mind was so right after listening to all those podcasts, leaving at 4, 5, 3 a.m. in the morning, that when I got there, I learned so much from it. And then I got to go out and see all those experiences. And when I drove back home, it was almost like my mind was kind of going from what I did and then what the best example and the model we're duplicating was as far as like the best producers in them as I'm listening to those podcasts. And I was able to make the deviation, know like, okay, I'm here. This is here. I need to tweak this, adjust this. And now I'm more in line with what I should be doing. And it was such a big deal. It made such a big difference in my business. And the one thing that Yoori, that I think everybody kind of gathered from listening to you this morning is that you don't like, it ain't a game. Like when you hear something, you take action. Like the thing is this, I've spoken to you, I don't know, maybe a dozen times. I've spoken to some agents like, 100 times. And in the small conversations that we have and the times that we've spoken, you just take massive action on it. You don't, it's not like you got to hear it 18 times. You just trust, you believe that what's being said is true. And I think that's a big deal. How much do you trust what you're hearing? And if you say, I trust it. But then if you're not doing it, you're not sacrificing and taking action, get uncomfortable, then do you really trust? Or maybe if you do, then if you trust, maybe you just lack passion. You don't really believe that this is going to work. You trust. But what is it? Because you just take massive action. You're an executor. You can go out,
Yeah.
execute on what you hear. And so I love that. I think everybody could get better today if we went out there and we executed and took what we know, because most people know, but it's going from knowing to doing. It's going from intention to execution. And so if we can go out there and execute at a different level on what we already know today, we'll make this week better than last week. And so Yoori, thank you so much for joining. I appreciate you, serving the team today. And thank you for hopping on. We're going to go ahead and transition back over. Now we got Evan on. So Yoori, thank you so much. Evan,
Thank you,
do I
Will.
got you on the line with me, my man? Evan, dude, thank you for joining, man. Excited to have you on the Next Level Live. I know that we both share this commonality of the fact that this podcast has meant so much for us in our business. And every week, usually I'm sitting there taking notes and leaning in and listening to top producers. And now they get to lean in and listen to you, man, because you've been absolutely crushing it. Evan, how old are you, dude?
25 years old.
25. Personal production. What's been your best month you've had? 70,000 in personal sales. Team, you just really started stepping into growing an organization, a couple months back? Is that fair to say?
Yep.
What is the team issue paying now?
We did 162 in April, and we came right underneath that in May.
Okay. Awesome, man. Now I know there's some specific things. See, it's one thing, you hear the numbers. Now, what I'm always thinking is, okay, those numbers sound good. I'm going to listen. But what allowed that to happen? What's practical? What are some big turning points, breakthrough moments, things you did that led you to getting into that place where you're writing 75,000 in personal production, VP? And that's what we're going to talk about, guys. So if you don't have a pen and piece of paper from what Yoori just talked about, grab one now. This is another chance for you to get a pen and a piece of paper. And so, first of all, I think this might be the first thing we kind of park at. Evan, where are you sitting right now? Where are you at?
I'm in Nashville, Tennessee.
Nashville, Tennessee. Okay. Where were you sitting 3 months ago?
Most likely Reno, Nevada.
Okay. Reno, Nevada. You decide to move to Nashville, Tennessee. Why did you make the move? Why make that sacrifice? You had an office in Reno. You moved to Tennessee. What triggered that?
There's a couple main reasons. I had built up, and my team in Reno was maturing, and so if I left, the walls wouldn't collapse. But I also wanted to build in the Midwest. In Reno, it's a fantastic place. It's near Northern California, but there's so many cities in the Midwest that are only a couple hours from each other. I could go bing, 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 really meet with people in person. And I was already building a team out there, so I figured, why not? Plus, there happened to be a huge office here. So it wouldn't be that hard to plug in and duplicate what I had before in Reno.
All right. So a couple things that I want to point out there. For one, you were thinking about your business. You had forethought, meaning that you said, okay, this is where I'm currently at. I'm in Reno. This is what I have going on. You had some producers, writing business. You had areas locked out, and you said, but what's the next step? What's the next level to go to? That right there, guys, for everybody watching today, if you could just leave with that, have more forethought. What's around the bend? What comes next? And thinking about that, like, how do I level up? Because it's one thing is, man, next level live. I'm going next level. Okay, what does that look like? What is the next level? Forethought is everything, man, where you can just start seeing around the bend, knowing, hey, this is where I'm at, but what's the next possibility of growth I can have? I just read this. It said a possibilist, knowing where you're currently at, but then also seeing the possibilities of these next levels and how important that is. And so you saw Tennessee, you said, I want to go out and sell more and build bigger. Where you're at, it's a great location to run different counties in different areas. And so you decided, like, hey, if I'm going to take my business to the next spot, where to go? You didn't just say Tennessee. You didn't do one of those. You methodic. You reached out to the lead department. You took a look geographically. You're probably better than I am. I'm geographically challenged. I don't even know where I'm at half the time. In fact, I still use a GPS from office to get home. My wife about killed me the other day. She's like, pay attention to the freaking road. I'm like, bam, I'm on my GPS. I wasn't texting because usually I get caught texting and sending a full email blast while I'm in the car driving, and she wants to kill me. And she said, you do know that we're like right down the street from my house, you fool. And I'm like, got it. It's just like one of those weird habits. But you picked it intentionally. Now, are you in a work spots office right now, Evan?
Yeah.
So for $99 a month, you get to plug in where you're at right now.
And it's huge. It's bigger than my office back in Reno, which I love. It's just different.
Well, talk about that, dude. How for one, you don't have kids, right? You have a place you live. Why go to, like, how is that benefiting you? How is the work spots, you being in that office right now, not being at your house doing this Zoom from your couch? How does that benefit you?
Well, it's funny you're asking me this right now, because this morning I woke up at 5 and I got out of my house around like 7:15, 7:30, because it's a 25 minute drive to this office. So I'm like, hey, like, Evan, you could have slept in for another 20, 30 minutes if you didn't have to drive to this place. And then you could just dial from home because it's quiet. But, there's a kitchen next to my table where I dial. And it's also the place where I relax. And it's the place where I play music. And it's the place where I do all these other things. Whereas this is my nice, if you look at it as in a mental box, it's like this place is dedicated towards getting stuff done. And it feels really, really weird to be here and to be just flicking through like Instagram or, messing around and not being productive. It feels really weird because I'm at the place that I'm paying money for a specific reason, which is to do work, to dial, to call leads, to build my business, to hop on Zoom calls like this. So anytime I'm not doing anything productive, it's like a physical, constant reminder of like, hey, dude, WTF. So that's why I come here. It holds me accountable. And I feel like I'd be wasting my money otherwise.
Hey, what did you say the other day? I thought it was said really well. You said that, like, you tie your behavior or your task to the environment that you're in. How did you put that?
Yes. So we associate tasks with locations subconsciously. So, like, for example, my mom told me this when I was growing up. I didn't really realize it until I was like 12 or 13. She said, no matter what you do, never do homework in your bed. Like, why? Like, because your brain is going to associate homework and like doing stuff and arithmetic with your bed, but you want it to be associated with relaxing, right? So I never bring my phone. I mean, I take this to like the next level, TNL, but it's like I don't have my phone in my room. Like some people don't keep their phone next to them on their bed. I don't even bring my phone into my room. So my phone never gets into my room, my closet, anything like that. If I'm trying to go to bed, not only will it allow me to like decompress, but when I walk into my room, I know that the only task that I've ever done in the room is go to sleep, and get undressed, and meditate in my room. So all of a sudden my brain, when I walk into that space, it knows, hey, it's time to relax. And it makes sleep a lot deeper. Arnold Schwarzenegger has the sleep faster thing where like you get the same amount of sleep in less time. And it's incredibly efficient to do that when you get deeper rest in the same amount of period of time. So that's one little trick that you can do to do that. But it also works with work, right? I walk into the office. The entire time that I'm in the office, I'm doing stuff. And when I don't have anything to do, I immediately leave. So my brain associates, okay, we're in the office now. And it just starts thinking in a productive manner just because I've trained it that way. It works the same thing for you, Paul, and anybody listening to this.
Well, I think a lot of what you're talking about, man, for one, is so good, is like being able to really get into a zone and completely focus. And it's hard to take off one hat and put on the other when you're in an environment or in a location where you wear a certain hat and you're trying to switch it to put on the work hat, but that's not the hat you typically work when you're sitting there. I love what Trey always says, have you ever taken a shot of tequila, like at a bar? Most people are like, yeah, I've taken a shot at the bar. Have you ever, gone to church? Most people, yeah, I've gone to church. Well, have you ever taken a shot of tequila at church? The answer is typically no. Well, Casey says he has, which I kind of like it. I like the fact that he has, but not common. It's typically not. And you typically don't go to a bar and you're like, what is that person doing on their hands and knees, speaking in tongues? Oh, they're worshiping. It doesn't work that way. Your behavior is kind of aligned with that. And I think that's such a big deal. Evan, if you can talk about this, and I really want to get into after this, your lead strategy, how adaptive that's been. I think when people just leave themselves available to adapt, they're leaving themselves available to grow to different levels that they normally wouldn't go to. So I do want to talk about that. But I do believe, man, and getting to know you, that you're very disciplined. You're consistent and disciplined. I know consistent's not a sexy word. Nobody's like, man, I'm consistent and it feels great. But it's one of those words that is so important. It's one of those qualities that it might be about anything. It might be about everything. Just consistency. In fact, I think consistency oftentimes trumps intensity. Now, if you could have both, that's great. But I think intensity will fluctuate based off different variables. Can you talk about, like, in your schedule when you calendar like dialing, how do you only how do you only focus on dialing, and is everything kind of calendar, like when you're going to go take a break and when you're going to go do this and the podcast training, is everything calendared, and does that help you give it everything you've got when you're wearing that hat or executing in that which is calendar? I guess what I'm saying too, Evan, it's like when I go to the gym, I need to tap into like this beast, dude. Like I'm just like, let's go. I need to get that out because that's going to allow me to get gains, whether that's physically or whatever that I want to get there. I got to tap into that mode. I got to be a little bit different, think different, behave different to get the most. But if I'm thinking about, like my daughters and how cute they are and something that I just experienced and I'm, how great they are, that's not going to work good going into the gym. Does that make sense? Cause I'm more like, just relax, like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. So can you talk about that? Like, how are you so disciplined? How are you so consistent? How does that make such a difference in the results you're getting?
Yeah. Well, I am really disciplined, but I'm not cut from a different cloth than you or anybody else. Just because my default is like lazy, like procrastinating, like deliberating over everything. The biggest thing for me is self-awareness. So like I meditate for an hour and a half every morning, and I've done so every single day for the past 7 years. And that's why I've named the agency FFL Meditate. But what it's allowed me to do is be aware of myself and aware if I'm getting distracted or if I'm procrastinating, to first become aware of it and then figure out a system or a way of dealing with it so that it doesn't happen again and I can prevent it. Because what's the best way of responding to something? Or responding to an obstacle, overcoming it, it's preventing it from happening in the first place. So, for example, with me, I don't know if it's necessarily something I do every day, but I remind myself of my why. I start my day on a clear path. And, if I am just going to sit down and dial, I'll make sure, if I have my phone out, which is my personal phone, then I'm probably going to go on it. But if I get myself a second phone that is only for dialing and has a different phone number on there, well, then I can only use that. So I turn my personal phone off and I only use my work phone for dialing. And that removes any sort of distraction that could come up, and it forces me to dial. Because if I did have this phone and I was able to look at it while I'm dialing, well, I would get distracted because I'm not very good at being disciplined. I just know when to put a barrier in place. And so whether it be forcing myself to sit in an office so that I can't go to the kitchen and make something when my tummy growls, it's that. If it's getting a second phone, I do what I need to do, you know? So it's my best answer. And it translates into different things within my life, and different things within the business. But that's a really good example is I do what I have to do. I realize, my behavior, and then I take the appropriate action. And it might seem kind of obnoxious or ridiculous, but whatever. It's obnoxious and ridiculous, but it works.
I think it's definitely not. Well, for one, if anything's obnoxious, ridiculous, corny, but it pays well, I'll be corny all day, baby. like I'm fine with that if it pays well. And this stuff pays really, really well. So for anybody watching this, guys, if you could just like what Evan's saying, so good, just calendar stuff and then visualize what can distract you and visualize your response to that distraction. So when it happens, you don't get distracted. And one thing that helped me out, Evan, is, if I would say like, man, I wanted to, take a look at that email, or it was just like, well, look at your email. I'm trying to dial, or it's like, get back to that person, get back to the person. I'd say, I'll do it in like 10 minutes. I'll do it in 10 minutes. So I tell myself I'm doing 10 minutes. I was just like, I'm going to do it later. And then after like 5-6 minutes, I wouldn't think about it no more. That urge or whatever, I don't know how to explain it, but it would just go away. It was just, I'm not going to do it right now. And then I go back to focusing on what was calendared. And Evan, I just think that if everybody could go look at their schedule right now and do an audit. This is something that really helped me because I was such a disaster, dude. I was all over the place and it drive me nuts, man. I hated getting to the end of the day and feeling overwhelmed, overworked, and underproductive. Like I did all these things, but where the heck are my results? I hated that, dude. And I just felt like I felt that in beginning seasons of this business, and it's definitely popped its head out in many different areas and over the years. But the way I handled that was auditing my time. Like there's 168 hours in a week. And so if you worked 40, say 60, you work 60 hours a week and you sleep for 7 hours a night, that's 60 hours a week, right? It's 120 hours. You still have 48 hours after that. What are you doing? So if you're working 60 hours, which most people, the productive ones are, but 80% of the companies probably not working 60 hours. And you're out there sleeping for 60 hours, you still have 48 hours. And I just think that I always feel the most fulfilled in whether that's filled with joy, self-satisfaction, self-image feels healthy, when most of my schedule is doing things that either help me out in my business financially, that's going somewhere, that help me out spiritually, my walk with God, that help me out physically, me working out, help me out relationally, my relationship with my wife and my kids and the people that matter most. When I'm doing things, if my counter's full of those things, man, I feel so good. And it feels like, Evan, like I don't lose energy. And so I think that for everybody on here, that one simple thing of just auditing your time and every couple hours just saying like, what have I been doing the last couple hours? And then is this the most productive thing? Am I been distracted? Let me get back to my calendar. Now you got to first have a calendar. So I think that stuff's great, dude. I mean, you absolutely crushed it. That stuff's so good. Can you talk about leads? So you moved to Tennessee because there's a lot of areas you could lock out. Tell that story for one, because for one, I love it. And then what did you do? What's been your response, and what good has come from that? Because you kind of know, I think, where I'm going with it.
You want me to tell as up to right now?
Yes.
Everything up to, okay, cool. So Memphis happened to be open, and I like mortgage. I was never running any mortgage in Reno, and I found out that you could lock down Nashville and Memphis and a couple spots in between. So I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And I did that. And then I moved here, and I forgot that BPLs takes like 2 months for them to turn on. So I get here in April, and I have no leads. And I was saying to myself, like, okay, Ev, it's kind of like day one, man. You started Family First Life a year ago in April of 2020, and you're kind of back to square one in 2021. What are you going to do, man? I have all these people coming on board. Like we had a huge hiring spree, and it was either sink or swim, in the sense that you could double down on your lead situation right now and show your team what you're worth and what's going to happen with them, lead by example, or you just fall back and just stick to hiring and don't give your all. So I went and I kept my normal lead spend of 1,000 to 2,000 a week. I bought a ton of CRM leads, and I did a couple of travel trips. So I went down to Alabama. I went up to Louisville, Kentucky. I went a couple places in Tennessee, and I had like my best days ever. Like you had me on, I wrote 12 grand in a day off of CRM leads, and then the next day I wrote 10 grand. Like that's the most I've written in 2 days ever. I had my biggest week ever. And I'm getting all like flustered about like, ooh, like I get to lock down some final expense BPLs and I get this lead and that lead. It's like, no, like the CRM is where the gold is at. So, I wanted to do it. I wanted to give myself the opportunity to see what it was like, what it's like for a new agent to start off and what they're looking at as far as leads and the CRM and Facebook final expense and any other place. And I did it. And it was fantastic. And I learned a lot. And I got to put myself in the shoes of a new agent. I'm going to be able to better relate to them as they're starting out, just mindset, budget-wise, return on investment, everything like that. And also traveling. Like if you're starting out, there's not enough leads in the CRM at that given time, you're going to have to travel. And I wasn't traveling that much for appointments back in Reno. So when I got here and I had to do it reminded me of that. And I'm really thankful for it. It pushed me out of my comfort zone. I learned a lot, both, about leads in the business and building, but also it forced me to get back on the phones and put in a ton of activity, right? $300, $400 a day, taking a break in the afternoon for a couple minutes to do some hiring and to grab lunch. But other than that, I was on the phones for 7 hours a day doing those CRM leads. It was fantastic. I'm super thankful for it.
Well, dude, I think your response, it came from the right thought, which was, man, this is day one. I'm gonna lean in. This is gonna be great for me to serve the team. Because it examples everything. When it comes to building a business, like you don't have to know everything. You just have to go out there and create a great example, and then plug people into the podcast and the training, the new agent boot camp, all these things. That's what helps out. Just a good example. And so, you looked at it the right way, Evan. Like, I'm out here. I came out premature. These leads haven't even started coming in yet. But you know what? Instead of me sitting there wallowing around like, man, these leads, I'm out here. What do I do? Do I go back to Reno? Do I just say, screw it? Maybe this is a sign. Maybe this is a sign. All that weird stuff. And you just said, hey, how can this be good? And what could be good is I'm going to go out there and work CRM leads. I'm going to be like the brand new agent. And so I'm going to be that much more effective, good, bad, or indifferent when somebody gets going, to let them know like, hey, this is what I saw. This is what I experienced. And you're going to be more empathetic. You're going to be able to challenge them more because you can say, hey, I hear what you're saying, man. But dude, and let me just tell you my story. And then you just tell them that. And all of a sudden now it gives them this different ability to be accountable to themselves because you take that away. And you couldn't do that before.
Right.
And you couldn't do it with the same conviction. Even if you gave somebody else's story, it ain't your story. And you're a lot more convicted in your personal story than you are telling somebody else's story. Now, I'm all about using somebody else's story until I got a story, because the story is better than no story, but it's different if it's your story. And so, dude, that's such a big deal that you saw it the right way. And dude, we give so many examples of people that if they only saw stuff the right way, there was such a big benefit that outweighed what they were looking at. If they would have saw it, like the seed that was there was going to take them to a level that they never would have got to, that seed of adversity or struggle, or why did this happen, or how come this happened, or this isn't good. But, you responded the right way. Your perception of that seed allowed you to plant it and receive what it had to give you. As we wrap up, Evan, anything you want to kind of talk about in wrapping up? We've got maybe about a minute or two, but I'd love to hear any kind of, thoughts that you've got to give to the national sales force before we wrap up the TNL this week.
Everybody that is producing at a high level, you might want to challenge yourself to just go off the straight CRM for a week, see if you could do it. And like Paul was saying, the conviction, right? Because new agents will give me stuff where it's like, hey, these leads don't work, and hey, this. I'm like, BS. If I can do it, you can do it. And yeah, like I have a year under my belt, but what BF and do? Like that doesn't change the world. There's still the same leads. I get the same objections. And the other thing is I knew that it was going to be impactful. So I recorded the entire thing, Paul. I have a 5-hour compilation that's just straight me dialing these leads. And you can hear me book appointments where I sold 3-4 grand off of a $2 lead. And just 5 hours of just me dialing, me talking with people on the phone. There's no ringing, there's no waiting period. And I categorized it by objection. So I had like tons and tons of calls. There's an hour and a half of, hey, I don't remember this. And then you hear me overcome it, or I'm not able to overcome it. Most of the time I can. You have the, I don't remember filling it out. You have the, I took care of it. You have the, can you call me back? And everything like that. You have the ones where they're in Spanish and I book an appointment with them and I speak terrible Spanish. So, you know, when people tell me, hey, like new agents or old agents, where it's like, hey, how do you overcome this? Or what do you do with this lead? Or, you know, these leads don't work. I'm like, BS. And I just send them a link to that video and it shows them exactly how I did it. I'm not special. And there's plenty of them. There's 2.5 hours of me getting hung up on. So it's like we threw everything in there. So you just want to hit the little like timestamp and you get to dive deep on that.
All right, that's awesome, man. Well, if you can give me an hour, the best hour you've got, I'll put it on the YouTube page, and that way anybody can come in, you know, go on and watch that. And I mean, I love that, dude. And thank you for serving the team. Thank you for thinking about that. You could have easily just dialed. You recorded and wasn't for you. It was so that way you can go out there and pay it forward and say, hey, look at this, look at that, and be able to help overcome excuses that will hinder somebody in their pursuit to get to 20, 30 grand as they get going here. So thank you for that. And thank you, Shawn Mike. Thank you, Mike Sizer. Thank you, corporate staff, for really creating an environment, Evan, where we both came on board and it helps shape our thought process, our responses. You know, it's almost like they built this up where if you complain or you think you're special, you get rejected. Like the immunity of the body has got this new DNA where it just pushes you out. Like, dude, where most companies, man, it's like it just permeates throughout the whole group. With this thing's been set up right, and Shawn's continuously showing that right example for us to go out there and glean from and build it the right way, build it on a rock. So that way there's no ego, haughtiness where, you know, we got people getting humbled all over the place. You know, we build it with humility. And so thank you, Evan. Thank you guys. Appreciate you. Go out there, make it a massive week. Let's keep this growing, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.